have already seen one way of creating bar charts using the frequencies command when we plotted the independent measure of gender. Now we are going to plot a bar chart with independent measures using the chart builder. We are still using the dataset clickers.sav. This time, our research question is this. At the end of the experiment, the same teacher wanted to know whether the students in both conditions, having their own individual clicker or sharing a clicker with the group, would have preferred to have an individual clicker. She measured how much each participant would prefer having an individual clicker regardless of whether they were in the shared clicker or the individual clicker condition. Preference was measured using a Likert type rating scale with scores ranging from 1 to 7, with 7 equals high preference for individual clicker and 1 equals low preference for an individual clicker. Go to Graphs, Chart Builder, and if there is still an analysis in place, click Reset. Remember that if you are seeing variable labels rather than variable names, you can right-click, or on a Mac, Control-click on any variable name and toggle between showing variable labels and showing variable names. In the gallery, choose Bar and then drag Simple Bar up into the canvas. Under Variables, drag Prefer into the Y-axis drop zone and Group into the X-axis drop zone. Remember that your canvas may not, in fact will not, look exactly like this one. Now click on Element Properties if it's not already open. Under Statistic, make sure that it is set to Mean in the drop-down menu. Click on Display Error Bars and then click Apply. Now click OK. Scroll down a little, and here we see the resulting bar chart. We see that preference for an individual clicker was lower in the shared clicker group than it was in the individual clicker group. To interpret these findings, I want you to notice how the bottom of the taller error bar does not overlap with the top of the lower error bar. The non-overlap of the error bars is a good hint that these two groups are statistically significantly different. We should do a t-test to find out, but just from the graph, we can get a good idea. So how would you interpret these findings? Individual clicker users preferred having their own clicker, but shared clicker users did not prefer an individual clicker as much. I interpret that to mean that if you have an individual clicker, you think that you prefer an individual clicker. But if you've had the experience of sharing a clicker with the group, you realize that you don't prefer an individual clicker as much as you thought that you might. Certainly, the shared clicker group was not clamoring for their own individual clicker after the experiment. But this raises another question for me. I wonder if there are any gender differences in these results. I would like to examine these findings by splitting them into gender. How can we divide a bar chart by group and gender? Go to Graphs, Chart Builder, and click Reset. In the gallery, choose Bar, and this time drag Clustered Bar up into the canvas. As before, drag Prefer to the Y-axis, Group to the X-axis, and this time, for Cluster on X Set Color, drag Gender to that box. In the element properties, we see that Statistic is set to Mean. Let's display error bars and click Apply. Now click OK, and let's take a look at the resulting bar graph. We notice two interesting things in this split bar graph. The first is that the same pattern emerges for both groups. preference for an individual clicker was slightly lower among males than among females. Another thing that we see is that the error bars for the two groups do overlap. The substantial overlap of the error bars suggests that males and females do not differ statistically significantly in their average level of preference. Again, we should do a t-test in order to make a determination. But the error bars suggest that there is not a gender difference in clicker preference.